We got the coach on the channel. Coach Minich, interview time. Hey guys, I'm gonna jump right into the interview here, but just wanted to let you know I didn't push record on my camera for the first few minutes of the interview, so it's just gonna be Coach on the screen for a little bit. Then you'll see me pop in whenever I remembered to hit play. Enjoy the interview. Welcome everybody to another Who Daily. It's your boy Mike coming back at you with Coach Matt Minich. If you know him, if you follow Bengals Twitter at all, you know the coach. Really excited to have you on. Thanks for being on, Coach.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So I'll start off with this. First things first, the important stuff. Congratulations. I heard you heard having your first kid, first child.
I am. Yes. Breaking the one rule I told my wife right away was like, all right, well, we can't have kids in the fall, but we're going to be breaking that.
Best laid plans.
We're doing September, right? So.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, congratulations.
But,
that's cool.
Definitely.
Gonna be named Burrow, right? For sure.
Whenever it was gonna happen, happy it's happening. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool, man. So I saw you care to share. Is this like a big reveal you're gonna do, or you care to share the what your Halloween costume ideas are? That's you said you had like the first 3 planned out.
I do. They're actually not football related.
Oh.
Everybody's like, oh yeah, it's gonna be Burrow and then it's gonna be Mixon, and like, although I will say. The new Stripes day, when everything came out, I didn't buy myself anything. I did buy an 18-month-old Joe Burrow jersey. I'm figuring I'm going to have a big kid because it's family history. So I want to get the 18-month because I figure then we'll get a couple years out of it anyway. My wife thinks it's ridiculous, but I had to do it. So.
That's awesome.
I want a Jurassic Park. Year one.
Oh, classic.
Yeah. And it's an easy one for the parents because you just the blue shirt for me and the khaki shorts and the pink shirt for her. And I was thinking like a hatching dinosaur egg.
Oh, nice.
Year 2, I got to figure out how to involve my wife in this one. But year 2, I was thinking I would be Slash from Guns N' Roses, and then we get like a wig and a bandana, and he can be Axl Rose. And then year 3, because we'll be like that. He'll only be 2, so be kind of that toddler age. I was thinking Rocket Raccoon.
Nice.
For him, I'll be Star-Lord, and my wife will just. Get her some green face paint or something. She's already naturally a redhead, and she can be Gamora.
Nice, love it. Yeah, man, classic stuff. I'm glad it's not all Bengals related. Not everything can be Bengals and football related, right? So that's good stuff. Just wondering, kind of, just for the channel, just kind of. Basically, I started following you because you were doing some really good kind of Bengals-focused offensive line, kind of not really scouting as much as just film evaluation and just saying what you saw on film there. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of your Bengals origin? You're talking about some superhero stuff there, so, like your Bengals origin story of like when you became a fan.
So I'm actually from northern Ohio, although I haven't lived in Ohio in years. But yeah, my origin story is actually my much older brother, 8 years older than me, was a Browns fan, and my dad wasn't really much of a football fan, but kind of decided he was taken into a Bengals game and kind of decided to. Bengals-Browns game, and decided to just be the Bengals fan and just take a creative rivalry and, just to make the game more fun. And my dad just took it to extreme proportions. I don't know what it was, but, something caught on then. And, I mean, this is back in the early 80s. This is, like the Ken Anderson Trumpy days.
Yeah.
And he was hooked. And by the time I came around, he was full blown. So I was full blown Bengals from that point on.
Yeah.
And I moved around a little bit. Like I said, I haven't lived in Ohio really since I was a kid, but held on to that. I've been the random Bengals fan in different parts of the country from time to time. So.
Yeah, I hear you there. I lived in Southwest Indiana, Evansville. That's where I went to college, and most people there are Cardinals fans. So I was a Bengals Reds fan, kind of out of place. Then I moved to Chicago. I was actually there when they won the World Series. That was wild. But and then now I live in San Diego. So I feel you there. Like, I was born in Oxford, so just north of Cincinnati. My dad grew up there.
Yeah.
It's actually, I was born in the same hospital my dad was born in. And yeah, got it.
My dad went to Miami, so
there you go. Yeah, my grandpa worked. He worked for 25 years as a campus security at Miami. Retired from there,
cool.
And then my dad, and that's why my dad was born there. So kind of get it honest, right? So my dad always tells me, you can, I know I'm out here in San Diego doing a daily Bengals YouTube channel, right? And he's like, you can take the boy out of Ohio, right? But you can't take the Ohio out of the boy. So yeah, and the thing is, I was under the assumption that everywhere I went, like, I'm never going to find any other Bengals fans, but that's not really the case. A lot of times, if you know where to look, you can pull them out of the hiding in a lot of places, right? Kind of like the OH for Ohio State. If you give a hooday in a public split with public space, you might get one back, like a Sasquatch call or something in the wild. So one thing I actually just today when I was driving out to get my get vaccinated. This is for the channel. This isn't an endorsement from Coach. It's just Mike. I was driving on my way back from getting the vaccine. I was actually listening to Burrow on the PFF podcast with Collinsworth, and I just didn't. Did you have a chance to catch?
Yeah, I was just listening to it as I was coming here, so I think probably all but the last 10 minutes or so I caught.
Yeah, I think the last 10 minutes they talked mostly about Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, but yeah, did you have any kind of what you heard? I mean, I just really love the dude's kind of his just presence. He just never feels like he always feels like he has everything under control. You know what I mean? And that kind of really comes across to me whenever I listen to him. I think he says a lot of the same things because it's kind of what the job is, right? Like, be confident, be the quarterback. Don't give anybody a reason to worry about you. But he's got that moxie about him, right? And I was just wondering if you had any takeaways from listening to that.
I think you're kind of getting into the quarterback and the coach. I hear a lot of complaining about Zach telling that's coach speak.
Yeah.
But sometimes coach speak is well, yeah, that's because that's what they should say.
Yeah.
You expect it. So a lot of times it's I feel like we want the coach to be like, yeah, we suck. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I'm always the same way. I'm like, what do you want him to do?
We got to get better.
What do you want him to do? Go out there and throw his players under the bus and say that we suck? Like, what kind of coach is that?
Exactly. You got to deal with what you got, and you got to think of the positive. I mean, it's the same thing. I feel like a lot of times, people have been calling forever for cut Bobby Hart. And look, Troy Blackburn took a lot of heat when he said who's going to play right tackle, but that's a good point.
He's right, yeah.
So what did they do? They signed Reef, and then they cut Bobby Hart. Now we're cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Cutting Bobby Hart doesn't necessarily make you better. There has to be a complimentary move, or there has to be somebody on the roster that's going to bump into that position that's going to be better. Because otherwise, you cut Bobby Hart and you cut Bobby Hart in the middle of the season, and then you're just saying, wow, Fred Johnson stinks, or hey, Hakeem stinks. Because you throw those guys in there, if they're not ready, there's probably a reason Bobby's out there over those guys at that time.
Yeah.
And I like both those guys. I think both those guys could develop into something, but yeah, I mean, there's got to be a complimentary move. I think it's the same thing with quarterbacks. As the coaches, they've got to be thinking about the big picture. Everything seems. We've heard so much about Joe as a competitor, and I mean, he has been around so much football in his life, from being around his dad, being around, it's because of his dad being at, they're talking about North Dakota State. I'm a South Dakota State guy, so that's although South Dakota State did beat North Dakota State this weekend, took the #1 seed in the FCS playoffs.
Those Dakotas, man, they're all about that Division III. They're all over the Division III football, man. It's Dakotas.
Division One FCS football.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's always changing.
But yeah, I mean, so like that's a storied program, though. His dad was a part of it for a year. With Ron Zolich, and obviously, being around Urban, being around Orgeron, and all the traditions. He's been around a lot of football. He's been around a lot of good football. Been around a lot of good coaches. I would wager that Zach Taylor is very different from Ed Orgeron.
Everybody's pretty different from Ed Orgeron.
Yeah, but it's good to see that there's a mesh there. There's an understanding. There seems to be a bit of a brain trust going on, and sometimes you can't see things right away. And us on the outside, especially this year, because normally there'd be a lot more access for some of the local media, guys like, people like Ben Baby, like Lindsey Patterson, Tyler Dragon, some of those people, like, they'd have a lot more access than they had in this COVID year. And, maybe we have a better idea of what's going on. But you do keep hearing these things about how much people like Taylor, how people really still believe, despite that we haven't seen the results we want to see yet. So, look, I'm not one to say that, hey, if Burrow likes him, let's go with him. Because you throw the football. You know what I mean? Run the team on the field. You're not running the organization.
Yeah.
But it is good to see, like, all the voices coming out of there that seem to have quite a bit of confidence in Taylor in particular. So it'll be interesting to see, where this moves forward. And really, I think they were at a point last year where they were getting better.
Oh, yeah.
And they were getting into us.
I thought it was obvious on the field,
where they could have put together some things. So, you could say, well, X amount of wins in so many years, but still, they were right in the fringe, and they were doing it with Ryan Finley, and they were doing it with Brandon Allen. And,
what I always tell people is, think about this for a second. Joe Burrow's never had an offseason, ever, with Zach Taylor. He came in his first year. It was a shortened COVID offseason. They got a little bit of work in, but it wasn't a full mini camp or full offseason, right? Hell, he didn't even start throwing to his wide receivers until like a month before the season started. You know what I mean? That was last year. Now this year he's got the knee injury. He will not, again, this will be another year where he doesn't get a full offseason, doesn't get a full mini camp. We haven't even seen what Joe Burrow looks like in this offense with a full mini camp, with being able to throw to his wide receivers for an entire offseason, and being able to communicate with Zach Taylor. But even given those obstacles, they love Zach Taylor, and that connection, the way that he's been able, I think it's a huge feather in Zach Taylor's cap that he's been able to hold this locker room together through that adversity as a brand new first-time head coach. I mean, that's not that's not something that I think was a given. I think there was going to be plenty of opportunity for Zach Taylor to really mess this up. You know what I mean? And to his credit, he's got guys out, veteran from your rookie quarterback to veterans like Mike Daniels, he's not like an all-time Bengal guy. He wasn't drafted by the Bengals. He's played for Aaron Rodgers and other coaching staffs, coming in and giving him really high praise, saying this guy's a really good coach. And here's what drives me nuts. Players don't say that stuff unless they believe it, because there's nothing obligating them to go out and say anything. If they don't like the coach, generally they'll just keep their mouth shut, But the only time they'll talk.
Come back.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I really like the. First of all, yes, I agree with you that just because Joe Burrow likes a player or a coach does not mean the Bengals should bend over backwards to appease Joe Burrow necessarily. However, it is a huge check mark on the right side of the column that chemistry exists, right? Because if you look at all the successful teams that end up winning Super Bowls and being competitive every year, there's a really strong coach to quarterback connection for all of them, right? So I think that's a really good sign. And man, just the Bengals, if they didn't have if they didn't have bad luck, they'd have no luck at all, right? It just seems like they can't get things to gel because of all what's going on in the world, or Joe Burrow's knee gets inverted on a freak play. It's just man, can we just catch a break? But I try to keep it positive on the channel, so let's move past that real quick. Let's talk about what you're what I really lean on you for from a Bengals kind of Twitterverse perspective, could you take me through, as a guy who might be wanting to get into grading prospects along the offensive line, what kind of things do you typically look for as, you know, positives? Like, when I see this, I know the guy knows what he's doing, and negatives, when I see this, I know this is a problem that's going to be difficult to fix.
In terms of the offensive line?
Yeah, just offensive line prospects.
Yeah, offensive line specifically. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you know, I look at a lot of different things. I think with the Bengals, you know, it's hard to say exactly what they're going to be looking for now. With Frank Pollock coming in, how much that's going to change things. But it definitely seemed like, you know, last year they really favored athleticism. You know, so they want guys that can move. The problem I think they have is but they also have guys that can be moved. You know, so you got to have a combination. You know, like
Trey Hopkins. Trey Hopkins is the
ability
perfect,
to be able to move.
Trey Hopkins is kind of the perfect example of this for me. Like, he's a very super athletic dude, but when you get him up against like these big nose tackles in the AFC North, he can get just shoved straight back into your quarterback sometimes because he's really athletic, but he doesn't have a really strong anchor going one-on-one against a big guy like that.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the key thing. You know, they like those guys that can move, which I think is going to continue because Frank Pollock is known as a wide zone guy. He kind of cut his teeth in the league with the Houston Texans. Alex Gibbs wasn't the O-line coach there at the time, but Alex Gibbs was a consultant with that team. And Alex Gibbs, by the way, that was Kubiak's Texans. Yeah. And Alex Gibbs was the O-line coach when the Broncos were really good and could run with anybody in there running the outside zone. So, and if anybody wants to learn offensive line play, just Google Alex Gibbs. And a lot of cursing, but some great stuff.
You'll find that with offensive line coach. That's one thing. That's one thing I do recall from going to camps in high school and stuff. The offensive line coaches are just brutal, man. Oh
yeah. Yeah, and like the casual swears just pour out too. I don't like, even when I'm coaching offensive line. This year I was a very rare high school offensive line / DBs coach because that's my odd mixed background.
Awesome.
And I swear like halfway through practice I was a different guy. Yeah, so I think that's still going to be important to them. Looking for the athleticism, guys that can get on the move. You know, not only to get out wide in the wide zones, but also to be able to get up to the linebacker depth. But they need to have guys that have that anchor too.
Yeah.
So you can't be too light. You know, you've got to be able to. It really, like, to me, to take on those blocks, it's by kind of sinking your hips and be able to, you know, to get low and really play with better leverage to be able to maintain those blocks. So it is a delicate balance there. You know, and you see guys like a Deontay Brown, this huge dude from Alabama in the draft. And you see a guy like that, and you're like, man, we could really use that anchor.
Yeah.
But is he the type of guy that they'll go for? Does he have the athleticism to really be that guy, or do they want guys a little bit lighter and can move a little bit more?
Yeah.
Last year, I thought Xavier Su'a-Filo was actually a pretty good signing for them because he moves really well. Mm-hmm. He's also really smart from what I see on film, and when I'm judging that, like, it's tough because every scheme, like NFL schemes and, you know, high-level college schemes, like, there's so many different rules and different scenarios that you look at. It's hard to know exactly who's right and who's wrong in a situation sometimes.
Yeah.
But he was a guy that I was seeing him playing for the Cowboys, and there were some situations where I see how he's adjusting the blitz. And I'm like, well, that's the only way that this is going to get picked up. Like, I don't know what he's being taught versus what the center and the left tackle are being taught, but what he's doing makes sense to me that they can pick it up, and what they're doing to me is what caused the sack. So I saw some things like that. So I thought he was a real smart guy, could pick up some of the stunts and twists. Have been a big issue for the Bengals, just mentally being able to pick up some of those things.
Yeah.
So I thought he was a good fit for them. And honestly, we talk a lot about Quentin Spain, but when he was out there, I felt like Xavier Su'a-Filo played better this year for the Bengals.
Yeah, I think that.
So it'll be interesting to see what he can do in year two.
Yeah, I did a video on the channel about kind of trying to project how good the offensive line will be next year. And you can check that out, and you can talk shit about how I don't know what I'm talking about if you want that. Like, I put myself out there as, hey man, I'm just looking at I'm a data guy when it comes to offensive line. So what I did was I said, look, Quentin Spain, before he was brought in like on a Thursday to a brand new offensive system and then playing out of position behind a bad O-line coach, he was actually pretty good in pass pro in his career. Like, he's a career-wise, he's a good pass pro guy, especially at left guard. But when you're playing him out of position at right guard in a scheme that doesn't make sense with a bunch of new guys who he isn't used to communicating with, yeah, he's going to look bad. Are you kidding me? Like, who wouldn't look bad in that scenario? So I think that getting guys playing in position, keeping them healthy, and having Frank Pollock, like just that, even if nothing else changes, even if they don't draft a single offensive lineman in this draft, I feel like they're going to be better, right? With Riley Reif out there instead of Bobby Hart, and without Mike Jordan on the field, like, for all I know, they may be able to get finally get Billy Price to work. Like, that's been a head scratcher for me for a long time. But what I want, and so
honestly, I went back and watched Billy Price's rookie year when Frank Pollock was the coach. He was better than I remember him being in his rookie year. Like, he played pretty well in his rookie year.
Yeah.
So Price, I think Price was the second Bengal that we saw react very, very positively on Twitter after Joe Mixon. With the Frank Pollock
I'm glad you brought up.
And he might be starting a center in week 1.
Yeah, who knows? And especially because you don't know which you don't. I mean, look, Achilles injuries for offensive linemen are a big deal. All right, we don't know what you're getting out of Trey Hopkins next year. But I'm glad you brought up Joe Mixon, because that's the big, like, people don't get it. Like, last year, it was Joe Burrow and nobody else. That's all the offense was. It was Joe Burrow throwing it to Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. I mean, that's basically was the whole offense last year. And getting Joe Mixon onto the field, to me, Joe Mixon's a top 5 NFL running back. Running behind an offensive scheme he knows now. Like, he's already run behind the Frank Pollock wide zone scheme. He's going to get stability. The offensive line is going to be way more confident with their checks on when they're looking at what the defense is showing them. Part of the thing I saw last year was nobody seemed to understand, A, really what they were looking at whenever they saw a defensive front, and B, how to address it. How to communicate, like, hey, I got him. How to address, like, if these two stunt. They have calls for that stuff, and it just didn't look like they had a guy on the field, especially after Trey Hopkins went out, right? So I'm really looking for big things in the run game as well. I think you'll probably see a lot less RPO than you would have seen had Joe Burrow not gotten hurt, but I still think you'll see it just to keep guys honest and stuff like that. But what you were saying about the offensive line and kind of what they look for as far as that athleticism, but a lot of times when you're scouting offensive line for athleticism and being able to block in space, like, to your point, you're sacrificing anchor and strength a lot of times. This is why everybody is just salivating over Penei Sewell, right? Because he can do both.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I think...
Yeah, he's a freak with that stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can just see it. This is one of the guys you watch on tape and you're like, Jesus, he's mauling people. Like, holy crap. This is not to say he doesn't lose reps. He does sometimes. But when he loses, it doesn't result in a big QB hit or a big sack. You know what I mean? Like, it's more of a, oh man, he didn't demolish that guy. I guess that's a loss. Not like anybody else. Anybody else, and it wouldn't have been a loss. But let's talk about, because I don't know. Like, I'm pretty much of the opinion, like, if they take Sewell at 5, great. If they take Chase at 5, great. If they take Pitts, great. But what I'm really interested in is that pick 38. And who are you on at kind of in that draft range at 38 that meets that criteria you're talking about that they look for in offensive line that could end up, pushing these guys that we already have and or just, taking a starting spot?
Well, the first thing I'll say is that, Penei is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's really tough for me, but I'm on Chase, Team Chase. Although I would have absolutely no problem with them taking Sewell. But Sewell, to me, like, some of his most ridiculous clips are the things he does in space. And here's something that's crazy about it. Like, I noticed watching his film, I'm like, he never gets penalties.
Yeah.
And I think I followed up with somebody, and he has like one, like, in his career.
That's why when people were saying that he has technical issues, if he had technical issues, he'd be getting penalties all the time. He doesn't have technical issues.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes, and that and he gets out in space, and literally, there are clips where he gets in space, and he is out of position.
Yeah,
and he doesn't block the guy, which is good. If you're not in position, don't block the guy, because that's where you get penalties. And like I said, I was coaching high school offensive line up until last week. We had a weird season due to COVID in Massachusetts, but you don't get holding penalties for grabbing onto a jersey. And I think because it's called holding, and because if you're my age, you were taught to use your shoulder and do the flipper and stuff like that in high school.
Yeah.
When they started passing the ball more and they started making rules for offense, they let you use your hands now. You get called when you're using your hands and your body's not where it should be when you're out of position. And yeah, you're absolutely right. He's always in the right position, and he seems to know when he's not there to disengage and to get away from that, which is I don't know. It's just a different type of athletic intelligence that I've never seen anything like it. It's crazy watching that.
He's really instinctual. When it jumps off. I've got a few I want to get your thoughts on. Let's say, just hypothetically, at 38, sitting there.
Sure.
Let's say they take Chase at 5. Hypothetically, at 38, you're looking at Tevin Jenkins, Dylan Radins, Sam Cosmi, Alex Leatherwood, and Liam Eichenberger all on the board. And they say, and Zach Taylor calls up Coach Minich and says, "Coach, we're taking one of these 5 guys. Which one should we get?"
I'd go Cosmi. I mean, I think, to me, Cosmi and Leatherwood really should be first-round picks. I know there's some position concerns with Leatherwood, but number one, that's never stopped the Bengals before. But who knows? That might be different with Frank Polley. Just like the Penny thing. Penny's arms are a little short, which I believe I believe I called that in October. Other people were talking about. I'm we'll see how much you like him when you figure out how long his arms are. Yeah. But I don't care about that. And the Bengals have shown that they don't with Jonah. And they didn't with Hakeem either this year.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to go with Cosmi though, and Cosmi, you got that length. He's massive frame, and he can move. He's definitely that type of body that can get going too. So, I honestly though, I look at his frame and I look at all that. Not even just the film, but you look at just the measurables on him, and that's why I think I can't see him getting out of the first round. I think somebody will fall in love with what he looks like.
That reminds me of Spencer Brown. Also, watching him, it's just they both had Cosmi and Brown both had just freakish pro days. Their RAS scores are 10, both of them. And it's crazy. Yeah. So these super.
I think Spencer Brown's a really interesting one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's Northern Iowa. That's by the way, same Division I AA conference as South Dakota and North Dakota State in there.
There we go.
And yeah, I think you look at his developmental potential, and that intrigues me even more than Radless in that same division, just because of what he can do. And I mean, if you can somehow pull that guy in round 3, he doesn't have to play. That's the thing. You have Reef.
Yeah, that's why you signed Reef.
Maybe you play. So you can stick that guy in there and look to develop him. If he's not ready, you've got Reef. Figure some things out at guard, but yeah, for that potential, to me, if you don't get a Penne, and if you don't get lucky and Cosmi or somebody falls to round 2, he's a guy that maybe can hit the jackpot on, and he just went out and got a new O-line coach. Yeah. So if that guy can develop people, that could be the way to get your Penne and your Chase too.
I'm glad you brought up round 3, because I have a sneaking suspicion that because of how deep this tackle class is, that there are going to be probably 6 or 7 of them, or maybe even more. I mean, there are a lot of really good tackles in this draft taken in the first round, and I think that's going to push the value. That's going to push some edge rushers out of the first round that maybe should be in there. Somebody like a Gregory Rousseau, somebody like possibly a Jason Owe or something like this may be sitting there at 38 for the Bengals, and they really need to get young and add speed pass rushers to their unit. It may be too much to pass up if like you said, if Cosme and Leatherwood are gone and they're not sold on, and like, you know, Jenkins, Cosme, Leatherwood, maybe there's a run on them right at the start of the second round. You know what I mean? And now you're sitting there looking like, do I reach and take like an Eichenberg? You know, Eichenberg I really like technically. I think he's technically sound. I just don't think he's the best athlete. And so he, because of that, he doesn't match like exactly kind of the guys that they like to take. So I'd rather them sit there and take BPA and not reach for an offensive lineman, because I like Billy Price a lot, but I thought that where they picked him was a reach, and I thought it was a reaction to what happened right in front of him. And that's the kind of thing I don't want them to do ever again for any player. You know what I mean? Pick based on your board. You know, if whoever's there, if you're going into a draft where you're pigeonholed into a pick at any pick, then you didn't do enough in free agency to make it so you didn't have to do that, right? All right, guys. Me and Coach actually talked for another like 10 minutes, but I had to wrap it somewhere. So I've been Mike. He's been Matt. This has been Who Daily. See ya.